It really gets under my skin when I see hardworking, lifelong drivers, folks who've navigated the roads safely for 40, 50, even 60 years, suddenly get tangled up in a web of unfamiliar government mandates they never anticipated. That scenario, my friends, is playing out right now in Department of Motor Vehicles offices across the nation. 3 significant regulatory updates have just been put into effect. And if you happen to be 65 or older, this information is crucial before you step foot into that DMV unprepared. We're talking about adjustments that could directly impact your license renewal, your ability to drive, and yes, even your financial situation. Here's the part that truly frustrates me. Most individuals won't learn about these modifications until they're already seated in that DMV office, feeling overwhelmed and bewildered. Listen, I've dedicated a large portion of my career to guiding people through complex financial matters and government red tape. And if there's one thing I know for certain, it's that knowledge truly is power. These aren't just minor adjustments to the existing framework. We're talking about required vision screenings with much tougher benchmarks, fresh in-person attendance rules that eliminate mail-in renewals for specific age brackets, and medical verification protocols that could catch you off guard if you aren't adequately prepared. So, let's cut through the clutter and have a real conversation about what's happening, how it affects your personal freedom, and most importantly, the steps you can take right now to address it. Before we jump into the specifics of these 3 new rules, I need to be perfectly clear about one thing. State governments didn't just arbitrarily decide one day to complicate your life for no reason. There's a rationale behind these changes. Understanding the why is just as critical as knowing the what. You see, over the last half-decade, data compiled by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has revealed a disturbing uptick in accident rates involving senior drivers, particularly those aged 75 and above. Now, I'm certainly not implying that older motorists are unsafe drivers. Quite the opposite. Most of you possess decades of experience and defensive driving knowledge that far surpasses the skills of younger individuals distracted by their phones behind the wheel. However, the statistics indicate that age-related vision deterioration, diminished reflexes, and specific health issues are contributing elements in certain categories of collisions. Consequently, state lawmakers nationwide began to take action, and the resulting measures are what we're contending with today. Let's address the first major update, the revised vision screening requirement. This one has some real weight behind it. Now, I realize you might be thinking, we've always had eye exams at the DMV. You step up, peer into that machine, read a few digits, and it's over. But here's the key difference. Currently, 23 states have introduced what they term enhanced vision screening procedures, aimed specifically at drivers 65 and older. Forget the simple eye chart evaluation of the past. You'll now undergo a thorough assessment that gauges not just your visual clarity, but also your peripheral awareness, your ability to judge distances, and something referred to as contrast sensitivity. This final element is particularly significant because it evaluates your capacity to differentiate objects from their surroundings, especially under low-light circumstances. Imagine navigating at dusk or during a downpour. If you struggle to perceive a pedestrian stepping off the sidewalk because their dark attire blends into a shadowy backdrop, that's a contrast sensitivity problem. Here's where this becomes highly relevant for you practically. These upgraded screenings are considerably more rigorous than previous exams. While the baseline standard, 20/40 vision in at least one eye, remains in place for most states, these additional measurements are layered on top. If you don't pass any part of this enhanced evaluation, you won't be leaving with a renewed license that same afternoon. Instead, you'll be issued what's termed a conditional approval, granting you a window of 30 to 90 days, depending on your location, to consult a licensed eye care professional. You'll need a comprehensive eye examination and have that practitioner submit a detailed vision report directly to the DMV. While this isn't a catastrophic outcome, it certainly entails extra time, added medical visits, and increased personal expense. Medicare often doesn't cover vision tests mandated for licensing purposes, as opposed to those deemed medically necessary. What does this mean for your preparation? If your license is due for renewal within the next 6 months, avoid procrastinating. Schedule an appointment with an eye doctor now. Request a full examination and specifically inquire about your peripheral vision and contrast sensitivity. If any deficiencies exist, it's far better to discover them early and address them with corrective eyewear or treatment, rather than facing them under pressure at the DMV counter with a ticking clock. I've spoken with numerous individuals who walked in expecting a 20-minute renewal and left hours later empty-handed, burdened by forms to complete elsewhere. Don't allow that scenario to become your reality. The second regulatory shift is causing even more frustration, and it centers on mandatory in-person attendance. For years, numerous states provided mail-in or online renewal alternatives for drivers who met specific qualifications. It was convenient, simple, and efficient for everyone involved. Well, those days are rapidly vanishing for individuals over 65. Currently, 18 states have decreed that anyone aged 65 or older must appear personally for every license renewal, with absolutely no exceptions for online or mail submissions. It becomes even more specific. In 12 of those states, this in-person mandate takes effect at age 70. However, once you hit 75, you're also facing renewal cycles that shrink from every 8 years or 6 years down to every 4 years, or even every 2. Let's examine why this impacts your daily routine so significantly. Firstly, consider the time investment. Anyone who has visited the DMV recently knows it's rarely a quick errand. You're potentially committing 2 to 3 hours between waiting, completing paperwork, undergoing tests, and having your new photo taken. For some of you, that DMV office isn't conveniently located nearby. You might be traveling 30, 40, or even 50 miles to reach the nearest branch. Now, multiply that distance and time by the fact that you'll be making this trip every 2 to 4 years instead of every 8. Secondly, there's the matter of preparation. You can't just walk in casually anymore. The majority of states now demand that you present multiple forms of identification: your existing license, evidence of residency like a recent utility bill or bank statement from the last 90 days, your social security card, or a W-2 form, and in certain instances, even your birth certificate or passport. I've heard accounts of individuals driving that long distance only to be sent away because they offered a cell phone bill as residency proof, only to find that particular DMV office exclusively accepts paper utility bills or bank statements. It's infuriating, but it's the current reality. Furthermore, here's an aspect many overlook regarding these in-person requirements. They aren't merely about administrative box checking. During your visit, DMV personnel are now trained to perform what's known as an informal assessment of your physical and mental state. They observe how you move from the entrance to the counter. They take note if you seem disoriented by simple questions or directions. They watch to see if you can read and understand the forms you're completing. If anything raises a concern, they possess the discretion to mandate additional testing beyond the standard written and vision exams. This could involve an on-road driving test, even if you haven't taken one in 40 years. It might mean a referral to your physician for medical approval. In some situations, it could require completing a mandatory driver improvement course before your license is issued. I'm sharing this not to frighten you, but to emphasize that preparation is your best defense. When you go to the DMV, be ready. Assemble all your documents in an organized folder. Respond to questions clearly and with assurance. Take your time with the paperwork. There's no reward for rushing. And if you experience any mobility challenges, use your cane or walker without hesitation. It's far better for them to see you moving safely with assistance than struggling without it, which might prompt worries about your overall driving capability. The third update is generating the most confusion and, frankly, the greatest anxiety: the medical certification mandate. 14 states have now instituted rules requiring drivers above a certain age, typically 70 or 75, to present medical clearance from their personal physician as part of the renewal process. This isn't just a simple note affirming you're in good health. We're talking about a specific state-issued form that your doctor must complete, addressing detailed inquiries about your physical status, current medications, any diagnoses that might impact your driving ability, and their professional judgment regarding your fitness to operate a vehicle safely. Here's why this becomes complicated. Your physician isn't merely confirming general wellness. They're being asked to evaluate specific conditions that the state has flagged as potential driving risks. This includes diabetes, particularly if you use insulin and are susceptible to hypoglycemic episodes. It covers cardiovascular problems, especially if you've experienced a heart attack, stroke, or have uncontrolled hypertension. It also encompasses seizure disorders, sleep apnea, any indications of dementia or cognitive decline, and medications that induce drowsiness or impair reaction times. Your doctor is effectively putting their professional credentials on the line when they sign that document. Consequently, they won't simply approve it casually. If they hold legitimate concerns regarding your safe driving ability, they are ethically and legally bound to document those concerns on the form. This naturally creates a challenging situation for many individuals. Perhaps you've managed your diabetes effectively for 2 decades, but you experienced a single low blood sugar incident 6 months ago. Your doctor might note that on the form, potentially triggering a requirement for more frequent renewals or restrictions on your driving times and locations. Maybe you're taking medication for anxiety or pain management, and although it doesn't impair your driving, it appears on the list requiring additional scrutiny. Suddenly, your simple renewal transforms into a bureaucratic labyrinth of extra paperwork, potential DMV hearings, and unforeseen limitations. Let me offer some practical guidance for navigating this medical certification requirement. First, schedule a dedicated appointment with your primary care provider specifically to discuss this form. Don't attempt to tack it on to the end of your annual physical. You want focused time to review the document and address any concerns. Second, be entirely truthful with your doctor about your driving patterns and any incidents you've encountered, even minor ones. If you've noticed difficulty reading street signs after dark or experienced a few near misses in parking lots, share that information. Your physician can't help you maintain safety without the complete picture. Third, if your doctor voices concerns about your driving, resist becoming defensive. Instead, become inquisitive. Ask them specifically what worries them and what measures you might take to alleviate those worries. Perhaps it involves adjusting medication timing. Maybe it requires another vision check. Possibly it means limiting your driving to daylight hours or familiar routes. Solutions often exist that don't require surrendering your license entirely. Here's another essential point about all 3 of these regulatory changes. They aren't consistent nationwide. We operate within a federal framework where each individual state establishes its own licensing criteria within certain federal boundaries. Therefore, the precise details of what I'm describing vary significantly based on your state of residence. California's regulations differ from Florida's, which differ from Texas's, which differ from New York's. Some states have adopted all 3 modifications. Some have implemented 1 or 2. A handful haven't enacted any of them yet. However, the direction is unmistakable. More states are adopting these measures each year. So, what should you do with this information? First, you must determine the exact rules applicable in your specific state. Don't rely on hearsay from a neighbor or something you overheard at a community gathering. Go directly to your state's DMV website or contact their information line and inquire specifically about renewal requirements for your age group. Obtain written confirmation if feasible, or at minimum, record the name of the person you spoke with and the date. Second, begin your preparations immediately, not when your license is on the verge of expiring. If medical forms are needed, request them early. If you must schedule a vision exam or doctor's appointment, do so with ample lead time. Third, consolidate all your documentation in a single, accessible location. Gather your identification papers, residency proof, medical records, anything potentially required. Use a dedicated folder or envelope labeled for your license renewal, so when the time arrives, you aren't frantically searching for your Social Security card or a recent utility bill. Now, I recognize some of you may be feeling irritated. You've driven safely for decades, maintained a clean record, kept your vehicle in good condition, and obeyed traffic laws. Now, the system is imposing additional obstacles solely based on your age. I understand that frustration completely. It's entirely valid. However, let me offer a perspective to consider. These rules, despite their inconvenience, exist because operating a vehicle carries tremendous responsibility. You're controlling a multi-ton machine at considerable speeds, in close proximity to others. The repercussions of an error extend beyond mere property damage. They can be life-changing or fatal for yourself and fellow road users. The objective of these regulations isn't to strip away your autonomy. It's to maximize safety for everyone on the road, including you. And here's an uncomfortable truth that warrants acknowledgement. For some individuals, these additional screenings and requirements will reveal that it's time for a serious conversation about driving limitations or alternatives. That outcome isn't a personal failure, it's wisdom. It's prioritizing safety over pride. I've witnessed too many instances where someone who should no longer have been driving caused an accident harming themselves or others. The subsequent guilt and legal ramifications were devastating. If these new protocols help identify risky situations before a tragedy occurs, then regardless of the hassle they cause, they're fulfilling a vital purpose. Your license is a privilege, not an entitlement. Part of maintaining that privilege involves the obligation to ensure you remain capable of exercising it safely. These updated DMV regulations are reshaping how that capability is evaluated for drivers aged 65 and older. Staying informed and prepared represents your most effective strategy for navigating these changes successfully, preserving both your independence and your safety on the road.